Games, board games, it's what I'm talking about. Board games, board games, I'm not gonna shout. I am starting off this streaming with a little bit of singing. And today, I guess I have meant to talk about board game components. Yesterday, I played Where Am I? It was a little game that I did buy a while ago on Kickstarter. And when I opened up the box, I looked in wonder. I was like, wow, these cute bits of crockery, they were simply adorable to me. But I'll talk about the other facets of components, board game components. I'm not gonna shout. Hello and good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. I am Bez. This is another Bezzy Beats and briefer bladder. This one's going to be quite brief. I am talking about a Bezzy Beats and briefer bladder, and I am talking about components, accessibility, price, ecological impact, aesthetics, and novelty, and functionality. Like, let's talk about these things, right? So this is just inspired by some recent games that I've played, but what's inspired it? What's inspired it? Well, let me get to that with some recent highlights. Recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights. Recent highlights, playing games and other delights. Recent highlights. So recently I played the games that are just scrolling down at the bottom of the screen. So yes, where am I? I finally opened it up after a long while of having this Kickstarter delivered, like, oh, I need to move, I need to do this, I don't have anyone to play with. What's the point in opening a box if I'm in lockdown and it's 2020 and I can't play with anyone? What's the point? And then yesterday, I opened a box. I was charmed. I was amazed. Inside, little wooden pieces for each of the characters. Fair, the wooden pieces could have been shaped differently. That would have been nice so that you could tell them apart from the side. There was a 3D table and 3D chairs. And again, on the downside, there wasn't really space in the box to put these things back in. But there was an entire doll's house set of tea set, crockery, little teacups, 4 little teacups, 4 little saucers, 4 big dinner plates, one milk jug, 1 sugar bowl, and 1 teapot. That was just adorable. Having all these, having this crockery, and the game itself is interesting. There's stuff about trying to have the most crockery points in front of your secret character, trying to guess who other people's secret characters are, and if you're matched or tied, then you're disqualified from competition. There's something really interesting there mechanically. The entire game, it's about picking up this crockery and putting it in front of other people. Or yourself, if that's who your secret character is. And it was just delightful. I mean, you see something like that, and it's got the novelty. It's got high novelty, it's got high aesthetics, it's got arguably low ecological impact. I mean, it's bad. There is the question of how much resources went into this thing. Is it recyclable? Like, what was it made of? Is it damaging our planet? In terms of functionality, is it high? No, it's actually kind of low because it's super fiddly to pick up these things, and then the tiny, teeny, tiny teacups and a teapot with the lid on it, and then you put it on, and it becomes part of the ritual of the game. I certainly wouldn't want most games to have this level of fiddliness. But again, I showed a picture of that, I showed a photo of that, and based on this photo, someone at the club was like, yeah, I want to play that game. Based on me sharing a couple of photos of the game with people on Big Tuck, the Facebook group, people were like, oh, I want to play this game. And that is because of the aesthetics, because of the visual quality. Yeah, let's talk about the price. Let's talk about the fact that this probably costs more. Let's talk a wee... But yeah, that's kind of... I just wanted to raise the question. Let's talk about the other games that I played through this lens. So, Galapa Go, a very simple speed, what matches the criteria on this card. You've got a bunch of animals. Some of the animals are hybrid, some of them have starfish. And it's like, what matches the things on this card? Grab one of these cards, and if you're correct, you get to keep the card. If you're wrong, then you lose a card as a penalty, and once you've gone through the deck. Now, this was a nice game. I really loved the animal aesthetics. I do have some quibbles about the flow of the game. I feel that towards the end, it ends up being that it's quite tricky to get to match the cards, and so it can become a bit frustrating. And the end of the game, if you already know who's going to win, that kind of feels like it's dragging on, right? But let's look at that. Like, that's a game, tiny box, just cards, just like small cards, like half-size cards, and the cards are multifunctional. Some of the cards are the animals that you're trying to grab. Some of the cards are the cards that tell you what to grab. Some of the cards are your little flags that you use to grab cards on. Wow, the birds are really singing today. And that actually has high aesthetics, because when you see all this creature art out on the table, I mean, that's something about painting and visual illustration. Like, you do it once, and then it's not like it has to be shaped. It doesn't have to be a standee. It doesn't have to be printed on a bit of wood. It can just be on a bit of cards. And it still looks really good. I mean, frankly, cards are arguably the best way to have, something that looks reasonably good on the table. But then, of course, you're missing the tactile quality. You're missing out on, the novelty. You're missing out on the 3D aspect. But it is very high in accessibility and price and ecological impact. It can be high in aesthetics. It's only low in novelty. Kingdomino, like, for those who haven't played, Kingdomino is a game where you're drafting tiles, you're putting them together, and you're assembling a kingdom. Maybe it's Kingdomino. Kingdomino. I don't. Anyway, so the tiles that you're taking are chunky enough, they're thick enough that you can easily grab them. That's super important. That is something that, if you're not publishing games, it can be easy to forget that they could have chosen 5mm thickness, or 2mm thick cardboard, or anything beyond or outside of those ranges. And having something that matches, it's a good compromise between price and accessibility, because the chunkier the cardboard, the better it's going to feel picking it up. I mean, I could look at James Maffei's publication of Manhattan Project and Energy Empire, where the cardboard pieces are so thick that they're almost like wooden meeples. But even Kingdomino, it has that little 3D castle that you assemble, and that little 3D castle, that allows you to then, place it in the middle. What's the point of that? It really has no purpose. you could just have that one tile that lies underneath the castle. But it was a case of, okay, we want this game to look a little bit snazzier. We want this game to have nicer aesthetics. So we are going to do something. We're going to do something to make it look just that little bit nicer. And so they had this completely superfluous castle. And yeah, sure, from one point of view, you might ask, well, what's the point in that? That has no purpose. It literally offers no benefit. It's true. It doesn't. But it does make the game more charming. It does make it look nicer on the table. It does arguably help it propagate. It turns it from a completely flat thing into something with a little bit of 3D nature. And good morning, Alex. It is lovely to see you. I hope that you're generally well. So, my own game. A game about quickly grabbing creatures that are totally different and watching out for turnips. So this one, again, it's just cards. It's going to be very cheap. The aesthetics will depend on the illustration. And again, this is something where I've got to be thinking, okay, if I spend a bit more time on the visuals, then it's going to look better. That effort is going to be multiplied, essentially. And having something, if I can use a distinctive shading scheme, if I can maybe use the different colors of the rainbow to color in things, and people are, oh, that's a little bit different, then it gives it an aesthetic resonance. And again, we've established that cards are accessible, they're cheap, they're good for the environment, and with the bag, I could even look into recycled baggies. Tumult Royale. Look, yeah, Tumult Royale, a game about spinning a spinner and then being, okay, do people want this much? You're grabbing pieces and you're saying, okay, these I want, and you put them onto your own bits. You're putting statues onto a main map. The little statues that you put are teeny tiny, so teeny tiny. And it would be nicer if they were bigger and chunkier, and then you could put them more easily onto the main map. But that is not the main point of the game. So there, I think that what probably happened is that the publisher thought to themselves, okay, where is the focus on this game? Are we going to spend a bit more money on making these 100... Yeah, I think it's literally 100. You've got 25 statues per player, and each statue is one victory point, essentially. So are we going to spend money on making these statues bigger and easier to handle? Or are we going to spend money on making the tiles a bit thicker? Or are we going to make the game a bit cheaper? Because the game isn't like a big, heavy strategic thing, and so people normally don't want to pay so much for it. So at that point, I think they made the right choice. So yeah, well done to them. And that's basically looking through the lens of my recently played games. That's what I've got to say about, yeah, components. Think about the accessibility, think about the price, think about the ecological impact and the aesthetics and the novelty. Because, yeah, whilst it sounds dismissive to say, hey, there's a lot of novelty with this thing, novelty is super important. It sets your game apart. Accessibility, you need people to be able to play it. Price, you can't, it has to be something that people are willing to be mindful about the world. Ecological impact is super important right now. But yes, novelty is also a thing that really matters. And whoops. Good morning, J Guard. It is lovely to see you. It's going to be a brief bladder today. I have basically just finished talking about components through the lens of my recently played games. But if you've got any questionably quick questions, then it's time for questionably quick questions is the next section. It's not an interrogation, it's just a questionably quick question section. So, yes, and whilst people are thinking about that, I'm going to talk about brilliant thing. Brilliant thing. What's a little thing which is brilliant? Okay, components. Components are brilliant because without components, there would be no physicality. I mean, components are kind of the board game, right? Because board games are about touching things, and sure, you can have games without components. You can argue that you've got games where the components are the people themselves. You can have games where it's fingers, or maybe it's your speech. You can have like you can play rock paper scissors. Would you call your hands a component? I guess you could. Would you call in a speech only game? Would you call your speech a component? You could, but that's not what people are really thinking about. I'm talking about the actual physical components that you buy. And so, arguably, make a word search. It has no components because it's just a blank sheet of paper and your choice of book and writing implement. So I think that components, custom components for a game, are brilliant because they allow you to put, it generates an atmosphere for a game, right? If you've got an illustration, that sets the tone. That kind of means that you're saying, this is what I intend this game to feel like. You can show off, should it have a cartoony feel? Should it have a spooky feel? Should it feel gentle? Should it feel loud and brash? You can set the tone. You can add to the kinesthetic experience, to add to the ability of people to touch and enjoy, and the tactile qualities of a board game are such a big thing. Frankly, that's a big thing of why there are other reasons why I prefer board games to video games nowadays, like the social aspect, but also even with people watching a screen, the focus is still on the screen. Whereas if the components are there, the components are between everyone else, and then you gaze up and then you see the other person. Do you know what I mean? And so, yeah, components are going to be what you're looking at for at least a bit of the time. And yeah. Pen and paper is also components, says J Fool's Guard. I would agree, but if that's pen and paper that's being supplied by the player, then I consider it in its own category, because that's like there's to me a big difference between pen and paper that I expect the person to supply, and something where it's, this is in the box, there is this pencil, there is this sheet of paper, and I think it's that sense of control that the creator, the publisher, has over that components. But thank you very much for raising the point, J Folsgard. I appreciate it. J Folsgard says, questionably quick question, how many dice do you think you can fit in your pocket? It depends which one. My bottoms, I am currently wearing leggings, do not have any pockets at all. My jacket, if I reckon I could get 1,000 dice in my jacket pocket, because I have seen teeny tiny 2mm dice, and I bought a bag of like hundreds of them, and the bag was about this big. So if a bag is this big of 100, then I reckon I could fit 10 of them, maybe. Yeah, I reckon I could possibly, if I bought 1,000 2mm wide dice, I think I could fit them all into my biggest pocket. But yes, hope we've established that components are brilliant. And yeah, now it's my turn to ask you, is there a component that you would like to give a shout out to? Whether you're watching live or after the fact, what is your favourite component? What, I don't want this to be a name calling thing, saying, oh, that's rubbish, that's terrible. But let's celebrate stuff. Like, what is your favourite component? And then when we look at the different categories that I've talked about, accessibility, is there anything that strikes you as really good, or price, or ecological impacts, or aesthetics, or novelty? Is there anything that really strikes out at you? I'm going to say that in terms of accessibility, I am thinking of obviously double coded stuff, like Ticket to Ride, where you've got the colours, but you've also got different symbols. That's pretty cool. I'm going to say Root, because Root is really good for accessibility. Those are good chunky tiles. They are easy to move. And so if you're struggling physically, you can still move those big chunky tiles, which is great. And they're really different colours, good for colour blindness, but also the markings and the shapes allow you to clearly see what's going on. I think that's the main little wooden pieces in Roots. That is a fantastic thing. In terms of price, I'm going to give a shout out to cardstock in general. Just cards, they are fantastic, cheap. Ecological Impact, a shout out to photosynthesis. That was all recycled. Let's see more games like that. Aesthetics, I mean, photosynthesis was actually really, really beautiful. And Sabrina Miramon did beautiful illustration on photosynthesis. I think that getting cardboard to assemble a 3D sculpture is a really cool thing, because then you keep lowering the ecological impact if it's just recycled cardboard, but you can put together really interesting structures. Like you've got these big trees, medium trees, little trees, and also the player stuff, but it's really those trees that look good. And I think there's definitely something to be said for that. And novelty. Well, wow, novelty. Well, I guess the Jenga blocks don't feel much like novelty anymore. I'm thinking, the Kerplunk is pretty cool when you've got plastic things, where it's like when you've got flippy things, when you've got generally the Toyetic quality, like 5-second showdown, where you've got the 5 seconds to answer the question. That's quite cool. I'm thinking of furry boxes, but notice that all of these seem to be big, chunky plastic components. And I think there's something slightly troubling about that novelty. How novelty, it kind of seems to push towards more plastic use, more, ecological impacts, which is not great. But GFO's Guards just wants to give a shout out to dice. Yeah, dice are great. I will. Let's look at dice. Dice, sure, if they're big and chunky, they could be accessible. Price, that depends. Honestly, like, people underestimate the price of dice. For dice, if you want nice dice, if you want them in an injection mold, that's got to cost a lot. You can have stickered dice, but then they look cheap, and it's not really. The stickers start coming off after a while. It's not as nice. And so, in terms of price, there is a really big upfront price, but then, of course, the per unit cost is massively low once you get into injection molding. What else? Ecological impact. This is where, again, dice, because of them assuming that they are plastic, and if they are wooden, then the price goes up, but if they're plastic, then the ecological impact goes up. And sure, you can have nice aesthetics on dice, I guess, and they're not that big on novelty, but even with the aesthetics, it feels to me like you can have nicer aesthetics on a card than you can on a die. Like, on a die, you would want like something simple, something clear, a clear icon, and that's it. Whereas on a card, you could have soft colors, you could have colors that flow into one another. And then the question you bringing up dice, J Fool's Guard, makes me realise that I have forgotten one aspect, which is the tactile quality. And I talked about it so much at the start of the show, the kinesthetic, tactile quality, like the sound that it makes, the touch, not just the way it looks, but also the sound and the touch. I mean, I guess we could get into smell, but most components don't have a smell unless you're getting into something super weird. But yeah, I can see that there's joy in having a lot of dice and rolling them and be like, "Ooh, I scored 1, 2, 3, 4. I scored 10 hits, and now you take 10 damage. Boom, haha." There's some joy in that. There's some joy in rolling the dice and then putting them out and having some. But yeah, then that seems to be where the joy of dice is coming from. Correct me if I'm wrong. But anyway, I do want to keep this short. I want to. I don't have anything much more to say about this. Hopefully, I've inspired some thoughts in you. Hopefully, this has been of some. Whoops. Hopefully, this has been of some interest. And so at this point, I'm going to say, over to you. What are you up to? You can share, but only if you want to. So, what are you up to? Anything fun and frivolous, or super serious, or something that you have to do, or something that you want to do? Today, I am personally going to be sending out a whole bunch of parcels. Large letters, in fact. One parcel. I'm going to be, boom, sending them out. Getting Chris to print off the labels, and then I will go to the post office. I'm also going to be colouring in 11 more drawings, just to then that will be all the drawings that I need to have ready for the Kickstarter backers. Drawings. And if I've got time and energy, I will do a little bit more packing up, because I am going to be moving house in about Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 3 days. The van is going to come over, and we are, myself and 4 friends, to help me move stuff upstairs, up 3 flights of stairs. So that is what I'm up to. What are you up to? Do you have any more thoughts about components? Feel free to share. J. Folsgard says, sounds good with all the letters. Thank you very much. I am excited. I'm also very happy and grateful to have Chris helping me. I am, pleased that it's gone so well. I think that I'm definitely looking forward to, and oh yes, I don't think I mentioned this explicitly, but if I want my new game, I quickly grabbing creatures that are totally different and watching out for turnips. If I want that to be ready in time for Dragon Meat, then what I have to do is have all the arts ready next week. So I'll be moving on Sunday, and then Monday and Tuesday I'll be, if I've got the energy, possibly as well, I'll be doing all the art. Then Chris will help me scan it in and put it all together and send it over. So yeah, that's the next thing that I'm going to be doing, but at the same time categorical. Anyway, for now, all I'm focusing on is getting wee whimsical creatures sent out and packing. J. Folsgard says, I think I'm going for a walk. Awesome. Maybe you could get the Twitch on your phone and walk whilst I'm walking. Like, I found it really nice having a little gentle stroll while I'm talking. It's seeing the beautiful leaves. It's like beautiful colours, and let's see if, I mean, just the radiance of these and the luminosity, check it out. And working on a prototype to make it playable. Well, I hope that goes very well. But that, of course, brings me to the end of the show, and I will recap and wrap up before I finish up. Recapping and up-wrapping. I mean, that's bad English, but it flows well, so I'm going to say it from now on. Recapping and up-wrapping. Or Capingry and no. Okay. Anyway, I talked about the fact that Where Am I, with its crockery, with its actual dollhouse tea set, made me think of all about components and their nature. I talked about how it was beautiful, it was novel, it was so charming. It wasn't the most accessible, and I wouldn't want that for every game, but for this one game, it is still super cute, and the game itself was actually the different components. I talked about the aesthetics, accessibility, price, ecological impact, and novelty. I also talks about these things through the lens of the games that I've recently been playing. Yesterday, playing Kingdomino, Where Am I, Royale, Galapa Go, and a game about quickly grabbing creatures that are totally different and watching turnips. Wee bit of a chat about dice. I reckon I could put 1,000 dice into my pocket. With your prototype Defaults Guard. That is the end. There's a lot of beautiful trees here, and for sure, walking around the park is fantastic. And that might have been, a willow tree. Maybe you can see it in the distance. It's there. Where's there? No, it's not the most visible. But that is the end of the show. So much love. Thank you for being here. And at this point, all I am going to say is yes, check me out everywhere. Stuff by Bez everywhere. If you want to buy my game, Stuff by Bez will be critical. Twitter.com/StuffByBez, Instagram.com/StuffByBez, Twitch.tv/StuffByBez, where I'm streaming every day at 10 a.m. UK time. I'm half considering skipping some streams or making them slightly earlier next week when I go to a show, because 10 a.m. there are games starting. So it would be sad if I had to skip all the things starting at 10. I don't have any much stuff until I'm streaming with Dina next Thursday. The rest of it's all going to be solo stuff. So if you have any ideas for topics, then feel free to go ahead. Otherwise, share, spread the word. Thank you, everyone. You are fantastic. Lots of love. And for now, bye, 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 bye. This is the goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye bye. Bye bye, Alex. Bye bye, J Fool's Guard. And bye bye, Salty Horse. I hope you have a wonderful day. And yeah, bye bye. Yeah, enjoy your own walk. Bye bye, everyone.